Okay, so we're talking about fractions and how understanding and being able to break things into factors really helps us when we're working with fractions. It gives us some shortcuts. Now, I already showed you some shortcuts with multiplication of fractions, and now I want to show you some shortcuts when you're adding fractions together. When you're adding fractions, I'm going to show you a couple of shortcuts. So here's a great little trick to use on this one. 3/10 plus 1/6. Now remember, when you see a plus there with fractions, that means you need to make sure that the denominator or the bottom numbers are the same. So we have to get this thing called a least common denominator. Now, one of the things you can do is you can just say, well, I know that I can multiply this side by 6, and I can multiply this side by 10, and that gives me a 60. But is 60 the number you really need, or is it too big of a number? I think it's too big of a number. Let me show you a better way to do it. What you can do is break it into factors. So think of the factors of 10, which are 2 times 5. Remember that little dot is the same thing as an X for times. And the 6 is the same thing as 2 times 3. Now here's the trick. The LCD is real simple to get once you get the factors. You take you underline the factors. So I'm going to underline a 2, and I need a 2 in my LCD. Now here's the rule. If you underline 1 over here, if that same factor shows up on the other fraction, you can underline it also, and you don't have to add another 2 over here. So we underlined this and we underlined this, but we only have to put 1, 2 down for the LCD. Now let's do the next factor. We underline a 5. There's not a 5 over here to underline, but we still need that 5 in our LCD. And now we only have one more factor left. We underline the 3, and there's our last number. And voila, you have found your LCD. It's 2 times 5 times 3, which is 30. And remember, before we were getting the number 60. That was more than we needed. This is the least part of the least common denominator. 60 is a common denominator here. It would make common denominators, right? You'd have a 60 on both sides. But 30 is less than 60, so 30 is your least common denominator. Now let me show you what to do with this. So now that you've got this, here's what you do. You take a look at your LCD, back into the factoring of your LCD, and you come over here and you say, okay, I already have a 2 and I already have a 5, but what am I missing from my LCD? I'm missing a 3. So I need a 3 over here, so I have times 3. And remember, when you multiply by 3 on the bottom, you multiply by 3 on the top. Remember, before we were going to multiply by 6? Now we're only multiplying by 3. That's a lot easier to do, isn't it? And we do the same thing on the other side. So I've got my 2 and I've got my 3, but this time I'm missing my 5. So I multiply by 5 over here, and I multiply by 5 over here. And now let's rewrite our problem. We've got 3 times 3, which is 9, divided by 3 times 2 times 5, which is our LCD, which we already know is 30, plus, remember we're adding these fractions, 1 times 5 is 5, divided by 2 times 3 times 5 is 30 again. So we have 30. And remember, the way we do this now is once you have the same denominators, the same bottom numbers, you just add the top numbers, right? Because we're adding them. So we add 9 and 5, and that gives us 14. And remember, you don't add the bottom numbers, you just put one of those in there. So it's a 30, and there's our answer, 14 divided by 30. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say you have 3/10 plus 7/12. So I'll go a little quicker this time. So 10 can break down into 2 times 5, and 12 can break down into 2 times 6. So let's talk about our LCD. So we need this 2, we need this 2 right here, and this 2 right here, and we only have to take 1, 2 for our LCD, right? We don't have to write both of them down, just one of them. We need this 5, and we need this 6. So the LCD is 2 times 5 times 6, which is the same thing as 2 times 30, which is 60. Now remember then, now we just, when we want to actually do the rest of the problem, we say, what are we missing here? Well, we're missing the 6 over here, right? So we need to multiply the 6 over here. And what are we missing over here? We're missing the 5 over here, right, from our LCD. So we multiply by 5. And now we rewrite the problem, and we have 6 times 3, which is 18 over our LCD, which is 60, plus 7 times 5, which is 35 over our LCD, which is 60. And remember what you do is you add the top numbers. So 18 plus 35, and that's 53. So we write 53 over, and we only take one of the bottom numbers. So 53 over 60, and that is our answer. Now maybe some of you are looking at that saying, well, that's not how I would have factored that. Maybe you're saying, well, 10 definitely factors into 2 times 5. There's no other way to factor that. But maybe you say, I wouldn't have done 2 times 6 for 12. I would have done 2 times 2 times 3. 2 times 2 times 3, because isn't that also 12? So if you would have factored it like this, would you have gotten the same answer? Well, let's check. So I'm going to change my color here. So our LCD, we need this 2, and so we can take one of these 2's, right? So we take the 2. Now we need this 5, so we take a 5. There's no 5's over here to underline. We have another 2 over here to underline, so we take that other 2. And then we have the 3 to underline, we take that 3. And the LCD ends up being 10 times 6, which is 60. So we would have gotten the same answer either way. You can go ahead and try that on your own, and you'll see you get the same thing. But the point of this video is to show you how to use factoring. Factoring is so important. If you know how to factor, how to use factoring to help you to find some shortcuts to adding fractions.